Hey guys, and welcome back to another brand new video. Today's video is my April wrap up. I'm kind of hoping that doing monthly reading wrap ups again is going to encourage me to read a bit more, because I have been failing miserably recently. So here we are. I actually read quite a lot this month, or at least, you know, more than I have in recent months. But that is largely down to the Easter readathon that Kate hosted, because I went all in with that readathon, you guys. I spent all 4 days doing nothing but reading. Without that readathon, I probably wouldn't have managed to read anywhere near this many books. But this month's wrap up is probably the most amount of books that I have read in at least 2 if not 3 months. All the reviews for these are on my blog. If they are not on my blog, they are on my Goodreads, and I'll put the links down below to the ones that I am doing discussion videos for if they are not up already. First up is Red Scrolls of Magic by Cassandra Clare and Wesley Chu. I gave this one 5 out of 5. Did have some initial confusion when I started reading this because I wasn't sure about the time period and when it was set, but that is my own fault for not checking before I started it. This one shows the glimmers of Alec becoming the Alec that we know by the Dark Artifices. It also gives us some really heartbreaking insight into Magnus's past, but I loved getting to see them back at the point when their relationship was beginning, and I loved getting their point of view so we could see what their thoughts were as their relationship was beginning and what they felt about the things that they struggled with. They're figuring things out, like what they want and boundaries, how to be together and so on. But while there might be a little bit of angst and a little bit of tension, there's also some cute, funny and sweet moments between them. What I found really interesting was that we got to see the prejudice between Shadowhunters and Downworlders, but from the other side. Because obviously before we've seen the Shadowhunters and how the Shadowhunters feel about the Downworlders and the prejudice from the Shadowhunter angle, but in this book we get to see that prejudice and that divide from the Downworlder point of view, because Alec kind of the subject of it a little bit. Magnus's narrative continues to be one of my favourites. His snark is on point. Alec is also an absolute mood at various different points. This book has a really good pace to it. It's not like Cassie's usual books that have a lot of build up to them, which there is nothing wrong with, by the way, you guys. Just saying. But we dive straight in with the mission with this one. We have a whirlwind visit to Paris. We hang out on the Orient Express. We get to see Venice, and we get to head to Rome too. We've got vivid settings, romance, action and mysteries, along with a fair bit of tension and foreboding. There's an excellent theme of forgiveness, along with a lot of excellently woven in plot threads, and honestly I feel like this book has a really different vibe to it than the other Shadowhunters books, which is something that I actually really liked. This has kind of more adventure, quest kind of vibes to it, but I feel like that change in vibe is mostly to do with the fact that Alec, for the most part, is the only Shadowhunter throughout the entire book. A couple of others do pop up, but it's mostly focusing more on Downworlders. We have no impending war of doom, everyone's gonna die, oh my god kind of thing. The action intensifies and ramps up nicely towards the end, and that cliffhanger leaves you screeching way more than any of the plot twists. I still can't. This slots in smoothly to the space that Cassie left for it in the main series. It's not at all out of place. I don't know how Cassie and Wesley wrote it, but never at any point did I read this and think, wow, that's not Cassie's writing. Wesley's writing really slots in easily. I just genuinely had so much fun reading this, and I was smiling, and I was even a little bit choked up at other points. This is now my fave after the Infernal Devices. Sorry, Dark Artifices. Next up is The Orphanage of Gods by Helena Coggan. I gave this one 2 stars out of 5. I was excited for this. The premise sounded absolutely fantastic. We have a civil war where the humans have wiped out the gods, and where the remaining children of the gods are kept in an orphanage, and once they show their godly powers they kind of disappear. That's it, bye bye. No one hears from them again, and it's like they never existed. But unfortunately I did not like or connect with any of the characters. Hero honestly really needed to grow a damn spine when it came to Joshua and just tell him to sod off. Joshua himself was incredibly annoying, along with downright cold and unstable, and he just continued to annoy me throughout the entire book, and he never improved. In actual fact, he got worse the more the book went on. He literally talks to Hero like pure freaking crap, and she just takes it. Then we have Kestrel, and well, I don't even have any thoughts on her, to be honest. It took me a while to get into the book. It was slow to start, but things sped up when it came to the rescue, and the first part did end pretty explosively, it has to be said. My attention was grabbed by that, and I was like, okay, things are finally kicking off, this is gonna be good, but then it slowed right back down again in part 2. And after that I just couldn't really get into it properly, and I kind of was just reading it because I wanted to see how it all ended and how they dealt with their little revolution. There are just so many unlikable characters and some of them are literally never held accountable. We get 3 points of view and once you've had one, that's it, it's done. I personally feel like it would have been better to switch between the 3 rather than doing it that way. I feel like the romance suddenly sprung up out of nowhere. I wasn't really a fan of it. But my main issue with this book was that I thought the whole point was sparking off a revolution, overthrowing the guardsmen, but the whole revolution, overthrowing them, kind of got swept under the rug. It was so anticlimactic and so easily solved. I was literally just like, is that it? And once that is all dealt with, we then switched focus to dealing with Anthony, who is apparently the big bad of the book, but we didn't see enough of him for me to actually give a damn. Kestrel's rescue was also too easy, in my opinion, considering the fuss they were making about it being a stronghold that no one ever comes back from and blah blah blah. I just don't feel like things are fleshed out enough or that some things are handled particularly well. I was just super disappointed because I was expecting this to be an absolutely cracking read based on the premise. The Princess and the Fangirl by Ashley Poston. I gave this one 4 stars out of 5. If you guys read my blog, you might know that I absolutely freaking loved Geekerella. So obviously I was super stoked for Princess and the Fangirl. I have been anticipating it. I have been waiting so patiently for it. So I'm kind of sad that I didn't love it as much as I did the previous book, but I did still enjoy it. There is loads that I loved from the first book and the storytelling from the first book. We've got article extracts, movie quotes, script extracts, and then we have the references. Yuri on Ice, Star Wars, Mean Girls, The Legend of Zelda, just to name a few, and we dead arse had the El Dorado quote. You know the one. This book is very, very realistic with the industry terms and phrases and with the convention in general. Like, I read this and I was like, it's been so long since I've been to a convention. It's been a year. The hashtag to save a character was also super realistic. The nerd talk absolutely basked in the nerdiness. It is so damn authentic, so damn relatable. Jess is one of our points of view. I got her completely and utterly. I understood where she was coming from. I felt for her. I empathized with her, particularly with why she didn't want to play the character anymore. Honestly, one of the things I enjoyed about this book was examining the dark side of fandom, because it's not all sunshine and rainbows and Funko Pops and fan fiction. You don't usually see the darker side to it in books. It usually focuses on the more positive things that we all love, but I feel like it was really well timed and necessary, and I loved how Ashley handled it. Imogen is our other point of view and our other main character, but she is also the reason why I marked this book down a star and didn't love it as much. I honestly felt like it was such a dick move for her to mess with Jess's career to further her Save Amara movement. She just seemed really selfish to me, ignoring what Jess wanted, yet then wanting Jess to adhere to her wishes, so I couldn't really enjoy reading her parts at some points because she was just completely oblivious to how Jess would think or feel. Like, she made a comment about being surprised she had friends and I was like, yeah, she is a human, you know, with feelings and thoughts. Not that you care because you just want your character back. And the other thing that bugged me is that she's supposed to be plugged into the fandom, right? And she says she is aware of those dark pockets of fans, but has no idea about what's going on with Jess and what Jess is dealing with. Right. I did empathise with her to an extent and how she was feeling, don't get me wrong, but she was so damn out of line and had the audacity to accuse others of the same. Did like both romances, sure there was a spark of the Insta about them, but you know, neither relationship was smooth sailing 100%. I just laughed so much at all of the humour and squealed at all the references to my faves. And Ashley's books are just never not relatable, okay? She gets us, she gets fandom, she is one of us. I'm also incredibly excited for the third book because I am 99% sure it's about Vance, and it is gonna take some monumental effort to make me even remotely like him in that book after this one, because I just really wanted to kick him. Nightchaser by Amanda Boucher. I gave this 3 stars out of 5. I really loved the Kingmaker Chronicles, so obviously I was excited to read this one. We're obviously going in a sci-fi direction instead of the fantasy. Super exciting, so ready for it. Crew of misfits being chased across the galaxy because they did something they shouldn't. Give it to me now. And to be fair, we have tension and death-defying antics along with a plot twist to kick things off. Main character Tess gives us plenty to be curious about. She doesn't take anyone's crap, she's sassy and she is determined in her goal and her fight. Shade on the other hand is arrogant and cocky. He's a space bounty hunter, rogue, kind of guy. He's okay really, even if you do want to kick him a little bit at points. Loved Tess's crew of misfits. Each of them had their own baggage to deal with, but they really helped each other and gave each other space to do so, and I love the dynamic between all of them. But while we do get to know some of them quite well, one of them does die, and I didn't really care because we didn't really get to know that character that well, or at least well enough for me to actually be emotionally affected by the fact that that character had died, other than the oh, while there is some action at the beginning and the end and we have some interesting plot twists, the middle is a little bit slow. The romance let me down as well. It's insta attraction and they literally had all these feelings for each other within the space of a week. Low-key feel like they were trying to be Han and Leia but didn't quite make it. Don't get me wrong, it was a fun light read, but it wasn't as galaxy pirates and hijinks as I was expecting it to be or led to believe from the synopsis. Basically, I think I was expecting rogues being chased across the galaxy with a shady guy helping them along and joining their crew and kind of having to assimilate and earn their trust. And I was expecting a lot more action and adventure than we actually got. Not a large chunk of the book being spent in one place while they get their ship prepared, so Shade can catch feels and the romance can kick off, which is what we actually got. Viper by Bex Hogan. This was another 5 out of 5. Hello Pirates of the Caribbean vibes with Game of Thrones' savageness. We've got assassin pirates with hints of magic woven in, lost royalty. So in other words, it was right up my street. Marianne I really enjoyed as an MC. I empathise with her. She wants to heal people and save them, but she is destined to be the next Viper. Loved the fact that she is secretly a badass and can fight and hold her own, but she hides it and bides her time. I feel like the strength, resolve and steel within her come out more and more as the book goes on. As for her father, who is the current Viper, he is what I would imagine Joffrey to be if he'd grown up and become an adult and that pigeon pie hadn't taken him out in season 4, but scarier. He's also not at all subtle, like, make it more obvious that you are up to something shady, my dude. Bronn. Katy Perry's Hot and Cold should be dedicated to this guy. It is his theme song. He's being quite cold to her, but he also wants to protect her and look out for her, and I really did get his internal struggle because the Viper gave him a home and a family, and he has very, very torn loyalties, but he does show off his kind side with just a few sprinkles of arseholery here and there. Although he had the audacity to get pissy at her when he came to save her. Like, no one made you do that, dude. Literally no one. That's all on you. I did really like watching them open up to each other again and get closer again. Of course, even that brings something to be angsty about. Anyway, we have a brilliant cast of supporting characters. We have badass Grace with an intriguing secret. Did take me a while to trust her, but I absolutely lived for her and Marianne teaming up and the girl power vibes. Prince Torrin pleasantly surprised me multiple times, not least because he was actually willing to fight. I'm actually really looking forward to seeing more of him and getting to know him more in the next book. The romance for this book though is definitely an interesting situation because it is not your typical love triangle. The romance is also nicely sprinkled in, so you like barely see it for 200 pages, and then it builds up more and more towards the end, which I did appreciate because, you know, we have rather a lot going on with this book. There is never a dull moment. We have bloody pirate battles on the high seas, the mystery of what went down between Marianne and Bronn and what her father is up to, and so on. Viciousness absolutely seeps into this book. We literally have a crew full of killers that absolutely love a bit of light murder and torture. We dead ass have an actual torturer disguised as a medic. Don't go to her if you break a limb. Just don't. We get lots of piratey detail and piratey practices, including but not limited to a lovely, vivid description of keel hauling, courtesy of the crew. Whew. I love the world building, it's imaginative and definitely fantastical. I was reading an ARC at the time, so I didn't have the world map, but I had a really clear image in my head of the layout of the islands and what the islands actually look like, even the ones that we didn't visit thanks to the vivid descriptions. But we get plenty of action with fights on both land and sea. It's nicely paced, the ending builds up more and more. Viper wraps up nicely, thank God, no cliffhanger. I don't think I could handle it. I'm not as young as I used to be, you guys. I just can't take cliffhangers like I used to. Obviously, there are a few threads left to carry us over to the next book, as well as some hints and possibilities of what could happen next, all of which made me very, very excited, and I cannot wait to get my hands on the sequel and to see what the hell is going to happen next. Warrior of the Wild by Trisha Levenseller. I gave this one 3 stars. I was really anticipating this book because I absolutely love Daughter of the Pirate King, and this one's very different vibes from that. But I was a little bit disappointed with it, or not as impressed as I was expecting to be. I'm gonna lay this out very simply, and we're gonna start with the good. Nothing like a badass lady doing a bit of sparring and tossing a man on his ass to kick off a book. has to be said. We quickly get acquainted with Rasmira and the village and how it works and the whole deal with the god. I liked Rasmira, she can definitely take care of herself, but I really empathise with her and felt for her because she is constantly mocked for being unfeminine and she just wants to be a warrior and a woman at the same time and does not understand why she can't be. I appreciated her character growth throughout the book and how at one point she acknowledged that she wasn't a good leader and she realised her own faults, which is very big of her. I liked her other two characters, Soren and Eirik, although Eirik, my dude, too soon for the truth bomb. Too soon. I love the bonding between the three of them and how she encouraged them to complete their quests and how they work together. Eirik I have a soft spot for because I found him absolutely hilarious, but I really loved him overcoming his fears and losing the bitterness that he had. As for the romance, I did like it. I appreciated that Soren didn't give up on her but didn't push her when she made it obvious that she was uncomfortable because of him and his feelings. Like, he realised his obvious interest in her made her uncomfortable, so he stopped, but found less obvious ways to be close to her, which was cute. Not that deep, but it was cute. It also wasn't the main focus either. And I will say that we had some intriguing yet creepy creatures. The Gundar? Ew. That was a visual I could have lived without. As for the not so good, the plot is slow to kick off. There is some action scattered in, but it's mostly a lot of adjusting to life in the wild, the camaraderie building up as she gets close to the other two, convincing them to do their quests. The trials really should have spiced things up, but I feel like they were rushed through. I also feel like some of the focus on Rasmira in the beginning could have been cut in order to focus more on the trials. While this does wrap up well, I also feel like it's a tad bit too fast paced. And you know, considering her sisters are the only people aside from Eirik and Soren that actually give a damn about her and seem to genuinely like her, it would have been nice to have gotten to know them a bit more instead of just having a list of names reeled off. I'm sure I would have been very touched by the sisterly reunion otherwise. I didn't feel like the world building was the strongest. It's basic, but it is there. It's basically just got little bits scattered into it, which is enough to give you a vague idea of the kind of setting that it is. And when it comes to Torin, I just do not feel like he and Havard were justified in their actions. Like, she was essentially sent off on a death sentence and I was absolutely outraged on her behalf, and I just did not see a strong enough justification from the two of them. I know it's fiction, I know it's not that deep, but still. Her mother was a bit over the top with it all as well. Like, I found it odd how she suddenly started hating her so much all of a sudden, to the extent that she actually lied in order to get Rasmira sent to her death. Like, seriously? Has to be said that I do feel like her mother has some redemption by the end of the book, but her father, on the other hand, still an arsehole. As were Torin and Havard, who had literally no sense of remorse or guilt whatsoever. So you could say I was not satisfied with the payoff at the end, and while I do get her continued focus on her mother's betrayal and her father's, and it being something that was hard to overcome, when it comes to Torin, I feel like it was really blown out of proportion, especially with the like PTSD flashbacks. I get that she has feelings for him and that he was her friend, I really do, but they'd been buddies for literally 6 weeks. Then we have the god. While I found it interesting the route our little villain took and the scientific aspect, I had been hoping for an actual god, you know, especially with the setting and the weird ass creatures. War of the Wild is basically a fun and easy read, but I didn't enjoy it as much as I did Daughter of the Pirate King. It has to be said, it was just a little bit disappointing for me. The Gilded Wolves by Roshani Chokshi, I gave this one 4 out of 5. Was it perfect? No. Did I enjoy it a hell of a lot anyway? Yes. This one pulled me in steadily with the rich writing style and the notes of intrigue, leaving me wanting to know more, alongside the humour and the banter between the characters that kept me amused. It's a complex book, we've got lots of smaller heists and cons leading up to the main heist, but this gave me such huge national treasure relic hunter vibes with the historical element and artifacts and the codes and the clues. Then we have the snappy flashbacks to Tristan and Severin's past, which was literally like a series of unfortunate events with their guardians kicking the bucket in very suspicious ways. Gilded Wolves is a really nice balance of action and mystery, intrigue, answers, questions, history, sprinkles of romance, and everything building up towards a very explosive end. Beware the cliffhanger, you guys. Roshani lulls you into a false sense of security, then hits you with more plot twists when you couldn't think anything else could kick off. The start is a little bit heavy as lots of things are mentioned and explained, but we have a heist going on at the same time to keep you entertained and keep you interested. We have a nicely developed and intriguing magic system, the world building is rich, the writing is absolutely gorgeous with some really decadent descriptions, and it paints a really vivid and vibrant picture for us, and basically brings everyone and everything to life while weaving in tension, foreboding, danger, and mystery. We've got a really diverse cast of characters with interesting and fleshed out backstories. There is also a hell of a lot of representation. Each character brings something different to the table, and each character has different friendship dynamics to the others, which I thought was a really nice realistic touch. We do have a couple of ships, but the romance isn't the main focus, and both of them are heading to angst territory anyway. There are a couple of negatives regarding an editing issue and a time issue, which is covered in my Goodreads review. If you want to check it out, I will link my Goodreads down below. And while there was some nice historical detail at points, it always surprised me because the time period kept just slipping from my mind, and then something would pop up and remind me of the time period, and I'd be like, oh, like I was genuinely confused as to why one character was wearing a corset at one point. I was like, wow, so extra. Oh wait. Despite its faults, I did really enjoy reading this. I read this in 2 sittings. There are some excellent plot twists, some that you do see coming, some that you don't, and some very interesting things have been set up for the next book. That's all I'm gonna say. And finally, We Are Blood and Thunder by Kezia Lupo. Unfortunately, I gave this one 2 stars out of 5, which I am really disappointed by because I was super excited for this book. I dove in eagerly. Seemingly everyone loves this book except for me. To be fair to this book, the opening was atmospheric, it was cinematic, there was tension and foreboding, and I was really drawn in. The world building also initially piqued my interest too, but that interest died out pretty early on. The gods and the goddesses and the magic should have been fun, but it just ended up being underwhelming. The magic system was interesting in the way that it was described. The thing is that the magic system for this book is touted as being original, but really it's just an unnecessarily complicated version of the good old point and shoot magic. Out of our 2 point of views, Constance and Lena, Constance's was way more interesting to me. I did not connect with Lena at all. I found her really, really bland. Like, she is becoming the thing that she hates, but she is not nearly vehement enough about it, in my opinion. She embraces the whole thing pretty damn quick, and I was actually so disappointed by that because I was expecting more of a struggle. Then we have Emrys, who just damn right irritated me. He spends way too much of his time chatting shit about Constance, and because of that he came across as kind of holier than thou at more than one point. Thing is, he was willing to listen to Lena no matter what shady thing she did, but despite having a relationship with Constance previously, he refused to listen to what she had to say. Why? For more tension. Like, that's the only thing I can think of, and it did not succeed. He had the audacity to say to Lena, "I've spoken to her at last and I finally understand," as if she had made no effort whatsoever to try and talk to him about this issue before and gotten completely ignored by him. He was just so against Constance for the exact same things that Lena was doing, but when Lena did it, it was suddenly okay. I guess the power of insta-love overcomes all. I am also of the opinion that Constance does all of the work in this book. Yeah, she was dark. That crown grab was straight out of that troll episode of Merlin, and it was kind of another obvious twist, but it was fun, and I literally loved the moment when it was like, oh my god, no way, because I enjoyed Constance as a character so much. But she's over here dealing with the justice, looking for the spell heart, looking for a solution to the cloud, placating people and so on, while Lena runs off to learn magic for a couple of days and not listen to anything Emrys says whatsoever, which should have been exciting, yet somehow wasn't. I just feel like Constance took all of the risks and the danger, and then Lena and Emrys swooped in at the last minute to save the day after pissing about doing some Yoda training thing. I just wasn't here for it, okay? The most unbelievable part of this whole damn book was the belief that Lena could actually control that cloud. What has she possibly done that would lead them to believe that? The pure fact of the matter is that I ended up enjoying Constance, who is the villain, way more than Lena, who is allegedly the hero, to the extent that Lena just irritated me and I just really did not like her. Honestly, We Are Blood and Thunder started out really well, but I fast lost interest as the story dragged and Lena continued to irk me. I'm just so disappointed that this was so underwhelming, with plot twists falling flat and basically having to slog my way through it. I was just expecting to really love this and enjoy it from what everyone was saying, but no. I will link my blog down below. Feel free to head there and check out the full in-depth review, along with the clearly marked spoiler rant that I just do not have the energy to repeat here. So that has been my April wrap-up. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. If you have read any of these books, let me know what you thought of them down below, particularly if anyone else felt the same as I did about We Are Blood and Thunder, because I feel like the black sheep amongst the herd right now. I will link all of my social media down below, along with my blog and my Goodreads, so you can check out the more in-depth reviews for these books. I post bookish and manga related content every Friday, so for more similar content feel free to hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys next video.